All right, we are going to get started for another episode of the Mentor Roundtable. We have entered into December, and one of the things that we were saying before we came on, a few of us haven't had an opportunity to connect in a few weeks, and then Thanksgiving. Emily crushed it 2 weeks ago, running it kind of solo at first. It was like 2 hours before, and she's like, I'll just do it and go for it. It's been an amazing ride since essentially the end of August, and I am thrilled. We have guests again this time. We've had about one guest. We have two today, but 1 week a month we've had a guest. We had the E-Twins to kick off our guest spots in October, and then we had Carl Hooker last month, and now thrilled to welcome in the authors of All In. I had a chance to meet Kristen and Jacie last year just on the fly. We both were doing book signings in Florida with the FETC in Miami. It was awesome, and tables were close to each other and just chatting, and then it was just a great experience to stay connected and seeing all that you're doing. And Sari and Ariel talking about a book study. So all of you welcome in, but Kristen and Jacie, take a minute to tell everybody who you are for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet, or for those people who are viewing who haven't had a chance to meet with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your books, and I know Jacie, you have a few books, so feel free to mention anything you want to do. So take it on, and then we're going to get started with some questions for all of us to jump in.
Go ahead, Nan, you go first.
All right, I'm Kristen Nan from the Pittsburgh area. I'm in my 23rd year of teaching. It's been such an amazing ride. I've been a third grade teacher for over 20 years, but this year in particular, I jumped into the cyberspace. It's something that we created within our district to be able to meet the needs of our students and our community members. So I am a second grade, third grade, fourth grade cyber teacher, along with third and fourth learning support. So it's kind of like all the things. So it's been a really cool journey. I'm also a mom of two boys that go to the same district I teach in. One's a senior and one is a freshman. That's pretty much sums up my whole entire world all in one space. Just awesome journey this past year. Actually, the last few years, Jacie and I taking and writing All In together. It has definitely just been an eye-opening experience, and so many on this panel have had the opportunity to jump into a book study through Read to Lead and 2 Minute a Book, so many other opportunities. So just great to be here. Jacie, it's all you.
Oh, before you jump in, Jacie, this is how this works. I usually cut people off.
Go for it.
I know, or I think when we met, you were Kristen's boss. So here we're all equal. So Kristen, if you say something like, this is your free pass.
Listen, Jacie hears it all. If there's ever somebody who's going to hear it all, it's Jacie. So it's all good.
Yeah, we've crossed those lines many times, Matt. I'm Jacie Maslyk. I am currently the assistant superintendent in the school district where Kristen and I work outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It is also my 23rd year in education. I've been an assistant superintendent for the last 6 years. Prior to that, I was a building principal and a classroom teacher. I think I started out in my early life as a very horrible writer. So anybody out there who got bad grades in college writing like I did, it wasn't until I met a fabulous professor when I was getting my doctorate who really encouraged me to write. And from then on, I kind of was hooked. So I do have a couple books, and my most recent one with Kristen, we just sort of have this unique relationship that allows us to see things from a lot of different perspectives. And I think just the simple fact that our jobs are different perspectives allowed us to enter into this book and kind of tackle some of the topics that maybe people might be too afraid to talk about. And so we hope it's a way for other educators, leaders, future teachers, future teacher leaders to kind of get together and talk about taking risks in education.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw the first question to the two of you, but then I'd love for our group to jump in. And I know part of the power of this is just having casual conversations. So elevator speech, you have 90 seconds, obviously floor 1 to, let's just say, floor 30. What does All In mean? We hear it, we hear a lot of catchphrases in our profession, and we hear all these, it's starting to get oversaturated and on Twitter and things with all of these catchphrases and different things. But I know from reading your book and having a chance to talk to you, you walk in your passion. So what does all in for education mean to the two of you? And then I'd love for the rest of our group to, because we have so many different perspectives here, from first year teachers to veteran teachers, from virtual teachers, to really kind of talk about what that means for all of us as we close out 2020.
I mean, I think the reason why we sort of hit on that title was one of the very first conversations that Kristen and I ever had. And I stopped into her classroom and talked to her about what she wanted for her kids and what she was hoping to do. And she, her guard was up, and she was really, hesitant to share what she wanted for her kids and for learning and teaching. And it was at that moment where I just was kind of like, you got to do it. Like, how can I help you? You got to make it happen. And from that point on, I mean, I think she would agree with me that that's sort of just how we've lived our lives together. Like, you just got to do it. You got to jump in and take that risk, because nothing good is going to happen if you just stick with what you're doing, right? So you have to put it out there. And I think leading with that philosophy, whether from the classroom or from a central office, that allows you to model for your kids that it's okay to take risks and to try something that maybe you're not sure of. And I think more than ever right now in education, we need that. We need that creative risk taking. We need people who can take a chance, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So you just got to go for it.
So it doesn't mean, since you're the assistant superintendent, you put your entire budget on red and you went all in to double up your budget. Didn't mean that.
No, but I feel like you have to push all the chips in on your teachers and be like, you want to do this? Let's make it happen. I don't care how much it costs. What supports can I give you? Let's put things into place so that bet turns into a reality for kids.
Awesome. So as I always do and put them on the spot, Emily and Molly, since you're your first year, you're rolling into December. What have you done to this point that you've thought this is a little bit of a risk, and it's either turned out well or you learned from it?
I can go because something actually happened last week. So since the beginning of school, so I started completely remote. For anyone who didn't know that, I was completely remote for 2 months, and then we switched to hybrid about a month ago. So at the beginning, the kids were getting really restless, and it was hard, and we weren't having a lot of time to do SEL, like social emotional stuff. So we started having dance parties, as do a lot of other people on Mentor Roundtable, as we talked about. And when we went hybrid, I was like, well, we shouldn't have dance parties every day because we're in school, we're seeing each other, but we compromised on doing it twice a week at the end of the day, which I know is just a little thing. But on Wednesday, we were having our dance party, and my principal walked in my room to deliver their breakfast for the next morning. And I was like, hi, we're just having our midweek dance party. And she was like, I love this, and started dancing. I was like, I'm going to come every week. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, thank goodness she was not upset about that. So I guess my risk of taking a chance doing some non-structured things as a first year teacher went fairly well.
Awesome. That's great.
I absolutely love that. That is amazing. Kudos to you. Each and every time that you're having that urge to meet the needs of your kids and meeting the needs in all the ways. I mean, Melissa and I, we talk about this in our 4 o'clock faculty, like that group has inspired all the things from day one. And it's one of those things where you embrace the moment. And I mean, what is the worst that's going to happen? I mean, that your principal says, you know what, I really don't care for that. And then there's a vulnerability on your side, on our side, to be able to have that conversation with our administrators. Jacie put it out there about taking and putting all her chips in on us as the educator in the classroom, but it's a reverse role as well. I mean, putting all of our chips in on our admin and being able to be vulnerable with them and having real conversations, that is huge with Jacie and I. Like, she knows I'm going to ask the toughest of questions, and it's not because I'm disrespecting. It's not because I'm questioning her authority. It's because I want to know if there's a reason that is going to be betterment for the children within my space that I'm with every single day. I want to know that reason behind it. So kudos to you. I love it. I'm all about a dance party.
yeah. I'm lucky that my principal is supportive as well.
Awesome.
For sure.
And Emily, were you going to say something?
I was just going to go off of Molly. And I know that last time we were all on here, I know Carrie and Melissa were giving some tips on how I could send off my kiddos and make sure that they're doing some work like on their own and independently and advocating for themselves. And so I started doing some teamwork projects in breakout rooms, sending them off and giving them guidelines. And I think that with their guidance that we talked about last time, it went really, really well. And I was able to just send them off for a while and check in on them. And they really, really surprised me with the leadership that some of the kids took on. And they all came back and gave shout outs for their teammates. And it was just a really sweet thing. And I was not really anticipating that. And I wouldn't have thought to do that, just send them off on their own as a first year teacher. That's kind of scary to me, being like, oh, I don't have to teach them this and I can just give them these questions and they'll do it themselves. And with their help last time we were talking, I did it and it went really well and they loved it. So
Awesome. So I'd love to hear from our crew, because I know a lot of us changed kind of our roles from this year, looking at what people are doing from moving to a remote principal, to a fourth grade teacher, to all online. What has this year done to just made you say, all right, I am going all in? Or what are you planning to do that you haven't done yet? I'd love to hear from you, talk it through, and share.
I'll jump in here. This year, I've shared with you guys, I'm a remote learning principal in addition to my other hats that I wear. And, Matt, when you asked that question and I'm sitting here listening to all these answers, I really can't identify just one thing, because I think that this whole entire year, every single day has been about taking those risks and going all in. We have an auxiliary building that we transformed into a remote learning school. We have 35 virtual principals. We have, 35 virtual teachers. We have virtual class parents. It's the whole entire experience every single day has been taking some sort of risk and not really knowing how it's going to turn out, and just being aware that we need to be reflective and having those conversations. I am having a constant conversation with staff. How did your guided reading groups go? How did those breakout rooms go? What worked, what didn't? And creating what I hope is that safe space, for them to feel like, Molly and Emily, you're talking about feeling supported, where if you were having that dance party and I was the one who walked in, I would hope that you would just see me dancing right along with you. So I just feel like this whole year has just been new and phenomenal. And the amount of learning that has occurred, I can speak for myself personally, it has just been tremendous.
If I could jump in, go ahead. Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. I was just going to say about trust. When I listen to Sari and I'm listening to the different perspectives, and a huge part of going all in is trust, and I don't think our little people, when I say little people, I'm even talking about my 18-year-old son that's in that 12th grade class. I don't think that they are used to being trusted, within that space, to be making these decisions for themselves. And a lot of times we as educators are not, either. And that goes for admin, with the relationship with board members and the community as a whole. There's so much trust that needs to take place right now with how we're teaching. It doesn't matter what way we are, whether it's high flex, hybrid, remote, all of it. We need to be able to open up those conversations so that we can build that trust and allow our students and allow the teachers and allow the admin to be able to come together to be able to make those opportunities happen. But by all means, go ahead and jump in there.
That's actually a really good segue, because I was going to talk about how it's been kind of difficult for me as far as taking risk, only because there's so much, and I don't like to use the word control, but that's the only word I can think of. There's so much that's out of my control, because I teach face-to-face. I have 30 students in person, and then most of my students are online, so there's 55. But I can only meet with my students for 1 hour a week, and we don't have virtual teachers or anything like that. So it's kind of hard to really take risks when I don't know what they're doing every day, or how they're processing the content, that sort of thing. So really the biggest risk I've taken is doing a full length text. I know it sounds crazy, but my curriculum doesn't require us to do full length text. It's just like excerpts of text. So that was really like the biggest thing, was like, I think me deciding that they were ready and that they could handle reading the full text. And it went well. But I mean, I would love to hear you guys' feedback about that. Like, it's been a struggle, not gonna lie, always looking for the silver lining, but it's just hard. It's hard to take risks when there's no way of me knowing or feeling like I can support them. It's just email, remind message, you know, which is not enough support in my opinion, but I'm doing the best I can.
Well, I'll jump in on that. I mean, I think, you know, I think risk comes in waves, right? And sometimes it doesn't come to us right away, especially being a new teacher with new curriculum. It's easy for us who might have been teaching curriculum for many years to say, oh yeah, I made this pivot, or I made this shift, or I made this change, when we know the curriculum, like we could probably say it without looking at the book, right? But when we're up to our eyeballs in a new experience, 50 students, I mean, seriously, that's a lot, first of all. A new way of teaching, a new curriculum. So sometimes maybe what you might see as risk is different than us. So maybe your risk right now is to give yourself grace. Because I also, just in the very small time that I've known you, can already see how dedicated you are and how intentional you are with what you put out there for your students, and how much you care and how much you want to be the very best for your students. And maybe your risk this year is to learn to give yourself grace, that you are doing the best that you can and trying new things. And then when you know the curriculum, or you know how things work face to face, then the risk that you see us calling risks might become the risk that you take too. And that's just, I don't know, just a thought.
No, I think that's great. And I'm going to throw it to Melissa, because one of the things that I see a lot, and you do amazing things, Melissa, and some of the things that Molly just shared, and Emily and Kanisha, I learned that for the first time tonight. I think that's fabulous. A lot of risks you are taking are out for everybody to see. Your weather forecasts, your Flipgrid things that you're doing. How did you kind of come to saying, like, I'm going to take these risks and also share these risks with anybody that wants to see? I'd love to hear some of those kind of just thought process, or just like, I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
All right, well, I want you to expand a little more than yeah.
Fall on my face weekly, and parents know. I mean, they are so grateful, because they'll email me, this isn't working, I can't submit. I say, oh, well, it's not a big deal. And I teach my kids, let's take it. I mean, if we fall flat on our face, at least we laugh about it and we have something to talk about the next day. But I'm a believer in, if you don't take that risk, you're not learning, you're not getting the most of your day. You're just going through the motions. Time is stressful, but we might as well jump all in and have fun with it. And I don't know.
No, I think that's awesome.
I just fail. So.
And if anyone's not following Melissa on Twitter, do that, because she's doing some amazing creative things as well. And Ariel, I know it's interesting taking risks. So Emily and Molly and Kanisha were talking about it as first year educators, and like, not that you don't know any better, but you don't know the other side of what could happen when you go all in and it may or may not work out. Where you went into the fourth grade position this year for the first time you're teaching that grade. So doing something different has some possible ramifications. How have you juggled that, knowing, being a more veteran teacher, but still having to do something very different? Like, what's your thought process with that?
Well, I loved what Carrie said in response to Kanisha, that we have to remind ourselves that no one has done this before. This is unprecedented for all of us, and we're all in a different place. The way that we treat our students, that they're all in different places and we meet them where they are. And why do we give ourselves that permission to let our students be met where they are, but we don't meet ourselves where we are? And that's something I have to remind myself every day. And that's why I love coming to this mentor roundtable on Sundays because I feel more accepted that where I am will be very different than where someone else is. So this year for me, my risk is that I'm learning a curriculum in a grade level in a age group that I have never taught before and probably will never teach again. I'm in a very unique situation where, like many of us, we're in one-year positions to support this crisis that we're going through. So I want to do the best that I can. I'm a perfectionist, like many educators are. I want to do right for my students, but I am learning too. So the risk that I'm taking in my classroom may be completely different than the risk that's going on with the 15-year veteran fourth grade teacher upstairs. And I've had a lot of moments like that this year where I plan and I work with my colleagues and I'm like, wow, what they're doing is amazing. I feel so bad for my students that we're not doing that. And I remind myself, like, I'm coming in with a different perspective. I'm a reading specialist and my students are getting the same love. It's just different. And although I may not be completely all in with the curriculum of Go Math necessarily, I'm doing what I can do best. And what I am providing them is my best risk. And that's something I think I have to remind myself of every day, but I'm learning through the eyes of my students that I do growth mindset with my students every day. And I'm teaching them the power of yet. And I may not be there yet. I may never be there this year because this is a weird year. And that's the risk that I have to take, is knowing that I may not get to my end goal this year in the way that I thought that I would, but I'm getting there in a different way. So it's been a very interesting journey for me so far this year, but I just want to jump in and share that I did read Kristen and Jacie's book in the spring with Sari and with Melissa as part of a Voxer book chat. And that book really helped me through some really challenging times, and having this community and then now just kind of coming back full circle, seeing some familiar faces, it's really heartwarming. So I really appreciate that we're all here together.
Awesome. Awesome. And
Can I add to that,
Go
Matthew?
ahead, Carrie.
Are you the one?
yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say that.
What
just
if I said no? Like, what would you have done? I'm just,
I probably would
I'm
have
just
kept
curious,
talking.
like on live webinar, and I'm like, no, Carrie, I'm going to mute you. I have something else I want to talk about.
I would probably interrupt at that point.
All right, good. The principal steps in like, that's not really nice. Go ahead, Carrie.
Ariel just got me thinking more just about what Kanisha was saying and everything. And I think one of the biggest pivots or things, and I keep using the word pivot, I need to pick a different word, but one of the biggest changes for teachers right now is we're put in this position where a lot of us strive for excellence and all of a sudden we're not going to achieve it. And it's just so exceptionally uncomfortable. And one thing for me, especially that I found for my own, like, it sounds, for many, I don't know, for me, it sounds silly, but one of my big risks for me during this all is to really self-care. I've always been pretty good at it. I've never really had to work on it. It's always just been, I handle things as they come, but this year is like, it's hardcore. Like, so for me to really be, I guess, to use, the term all in with my self-care, with my gratitude, with my giving myself grace, that takes a lot of work for me. And for me, that's my big shift. And also for me, now see, Kanisha, now I'm going to feel a little overwhelmed. For me, my big risk this year is reaching out and asking for help, because I am not somebody who does that. And so leaning on my team even more than I usually do, really being vulnerable about how I feel, crying if I need to in front of my team. Those for me, there's lots of risks I take in the classroom, but those things for me, those are risks that have been new for me and as a teacher.
No, and I think, thank you. First of all, thank you for the vulnerability to share. I know that's not easy, especially again, in live time. And I think a lot of us here experienced that back in the summer before we even started, and it really shifted our thought of like, what would we do on Sundays? How would we help? And coming together and just kind of having a blind faith of mutual trust, I think was important. So I do want to ask Kristen and Jacie a question, because especially for our new educators, we talk about this and we're like, yeah, go all in, it's great. And everything's going to turn out fine, and do that best for the students. When have you, because I want our new teachers to know they're not alone. When have you gone kind of all in and hasn't worked out? And not that I want to call you out on that, but I think it's important for our new educators, one, to know you're not alone, that happens over time. But what did you do after that? What did you do to kind of regroup and press forward? Because I think that's where we have to, as a profession, know that if you're gonna go all in, if you're gonna take these risks, if you're gonna try something and it doesn't work, try again, evolve, or do something different. So I'd love to hear that. And then again, throw it out to everyone, jump in because part of having that comfort and vulnerability that Carrie just showed, or us to try it, is having that mutual trust to say others have done things too that may not have worked out.
It's interesting that you said that you asked that question, Matt. I mean, that was exactly what I was thinking when I was listening to Carrie. Like, oh my God, like there are so many times where something doesn't go right, and I, call on the support of the folks who are, on my team or in my corner. Going all in doesn't mean that you gamble and win every time. I mean, that's just not the reality, right? I mean, I don't know how Kristen will feel if I say this, but I'm in the same boat as Sari this year, and I'm running our cyber school for elementary kids K-6. And we have upwards of 280 kids in our program. And every day, I don't know if I'm succeeding or failing with that because I never ran a cyber program before. I have fabulous teachers who I know are connecting with kids and parents every single day and trying to make this program work. But if I'm being really honest, I don't know if I'm doing my best. I've never done this before. And so it's a huge risk for me to say, yes, woohoo, we're going to start a cyber program. And I know that ultimately families needed this. That's why we did it. Families needed to be at home, and we needed to provide an educational pathway for them. But every day I struggle with, am I doing the right thing? Did I reach out to enough people? Am I supporting the teachers on my cyber team the way I should be? Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't. I couldn't say that gamble is a win just yet. We're still working on it. Maybe we got a push, right? I don't, if anybody plays Pi Gal poker, we put our bet in and we didn't win, but we're still in there because it's tough. And like Ariel was saying, like everybody really is in that first year because nobody's done this before. Nobody in our century has ever led through a pandemic or taught fourth grade or sixth grade or 12th grade or art or music or whatever. We're all in a different boat. And, some days we're going to have those small wins and it's going to feel really good. And other days there's going to be failures. And I think that's just how we respond to that, how we reflect on it and think, okay, I'm going to do this better next time, or I'm going to get back on that tomorrow. The way we respond to the failures, I think, is the huge opportunity that we have.
No doubt. Matt, I'm so glad you brought this back around because honestly, for those that have been in the book study, I mean, all in is not about, just like Jacie said, it's not about winning all the time. I mean, there's over 30 bets here, and one of them is about the loan shark. And right now, it's beware of the loan shark is like, where is that loan being taken? Is it on ourselves? Is it, where's the cost? And self-care is so extremely important, and it's not just the kind of self-care where you just walk away for a minute. It's the self-care where you're really truly finding what you need, and I don't even know what I need on a day-to-day basis, and I don't think any of us really do because it looks so different every single day. But I am a risk taker. I'm a natural born risk taker, and it's definitely gotten me in trouble before. And I've definitely had failures upon failures upon failures, and I've rubbed people the wrong way with that. But I'll tell you what, when our community needed this, I immediately looked at what were the qualifications. We needed a Google certification, we needed an Apple certification, whatever those were. I was like, I'm there. If this is what we need, I'm going to do it. But I will tell you something right now. All that energy and all that willingness that I was ready to give, I forgot who I was in the middle of all of that, because even though I'm 23 years into education, about 10 years ago, I suffered from a very, very severe brain injury. I had a concussion that, like, I almost had to resign from teaching. my brain swelled and I was put to sleep for a while. I lost all my ability to speak. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Anyone who knows me, whoa, big time, right? But in all honesty and seriousness, I was not prepared in my heart, in my mind, in my soul to be new at something right now, because I got really, really good at being a third grade teacher. I was really good at it. And I was able to take these big risks because I was really good at the foundation of what I was doing. I was willing to go out and, bring Carrie's work into my space and doodle and create with my kids in a way that I had never, ever thought about before, because I was in a safe place of what I knew, and I knew it well. When I took on this cyber position, it rattled me to my core. We were literally learning minute by minute every single day, and trying to teach and trying to comfort and trying to reach and meet the needs of our parents that were trying to be in this cyberspace. And we're all feeling that in our own way. And for me, I broke down. I did cry. I had to take my cyber team that thought they had this teacher that was this valuable asset of experience. And I had to look at them and tell them I was as new and as green as it gets. And that with every single day, I was going back to writing everything I do on paper, every pop up of in Microsoft Teams, every child that sent me a message, every parent that sent me an email, I had to list it down and then check it off to make sure I was doing my job, to make sure I was meeting those needs. That scared me half to death. I thought, wow, not just that, but I mean, I had a reputation within my own elementary space that those parents, they gifted me a trust built on the years I have experienced with them. I was now with children and parents that have never met me before. We have 3 elementaries, and I was bringing in a part of our community that had no idea who Mrs. Nan, even who is this Mrs. Nan? They didn't know me. So I had nothing to lean on. I was as new as it gets, and I was hitting hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and I still do on a daily basis. But I have to make sure that I am being honest and open, and that I'm taking care of myself. And that if that means removing myself off of social media a little bit, which I'm so used to doing because I grow so much there, then I do that. And I don't apologize for it, because at the end of the day, it is what I need. And in turn, it's what I can then give to my students the next day and to my own family. So it's so important to realize that being all in is not just about that winning moment. It's about taking chances and taking risks, and then bringing it back to not loaning out too much of oneself, so that we can all be better for it in the end.
No, and I think that's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing. A couple things you said in there, I'm going to have you, well, for me, it would be look up to the left, but we've talked a lot about this with Molly and Emily and Kanisha, as well, as they are entering for the first time into this profession. How can they go all in without giving too much of themselves? I know we've talked about that in almost every episode, and that's for everybody here. What would you recommend? What would be some of the things that you could share with them about making sure they have that self-care and have that balance as well? Because if they're not taking care of themselves, and I don't want to speak for them, but I know that it's something we've talked about a lot. What would you suggest?
For me personally, I mean, we're all so different. You have to know yourself. And I think that self-awareness is going to be able to help you on your own journey. I think truly you give, and when you're starting to feel yourself stretched, you pull yourself back. You find what you need in order to do that. You surround yourself. You're right here at this table with the most beautiful people and support system, and you're doing this and you're committing yourself to it every Sunday so that you have those supports in place. That is huge. I don't get to talk with Jacie every day like I used to, but I know if I need her, she's going to be right there. Like, who are your people? Who are you able to truly lean on and be open and honest and allow them to see you, like, just see the whole you. That is a really big deal. I mean, sorry, Ariel, everyone in this group, honestly, you've all seen the real me. I'm not trying to be anything different in this forum as anywhere else. And so I think that that vulnerability, day one, no matter if you're 1 year into it, 20 years into it, whatever that looks like, I think being the real you and not trying to play into what you think people are expecting of you or wanting from you. So being vulnerable enough and real enough to know what you need and bringing that to the table, and also being able to back up when you need to. So if a Sunday comes and you just really feel like this is going to stretch you too far, that's when you reach out and you let Matt know, listen, I just can't today, because it's okay.
No, I think that's awesome. And they have, I'm super proud to when that happens, and then other people have stepped up. It's been great. So I'll throw it out to the group. I'm not saying our new folks have to answer, but how are you balancing that right now? Our team here, how are you balancing that, going all in and giving, but taking care of yourselves? What are some of the things that you're doing? So I know we haven't connected in a little bit, but I'd love to hear what other people are doing to make sure that balance is there.
I struggle with this, and
Fair.
I think that the pandemic has really made it rise to the surface in a way that I finally needed to take a step back and actually address it. So Ellen in our Read to Lead group was probably one of the first people that I had a really deep conversation with this about. And it started with turning the notifications off on my phone for my emails. I started to have to very consciously, intentionally protect time, so I could be with my family, so I can give myself a little bit of a rest, making sure that I have some physical activity in the morning. And Matt, you're walking Ed, you have no idea how that motivated me in a way that I needed during a difficult time when I needed to really take that time for myself. So for me, it's not about time management, it's about self-management. And it was about being extremely intentional, and just right out of the gate, like the notifications, because I don't have enough of the control to not, respond. I have it in me, as I think so many others in this group do. You have that, urge. You just want to help. You want to be there for others, right? So if the notification was going off and it's a parent and it's a Saturday afternoon and they're having a meltdown, I'm going to respond, right? But is it the best for me? And you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Well, and I think two good points there. One, I mean, it's about putting some boundaries out there. I don't want to receive texts pretty much from anybody between like 11 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. And so I put that boundary in place, and I think our devices are a huge part of that. I do not have my notifications on for Voxer messages. Like, I check it, I check in, but I don't have that notification come up. And I will kind of connect that to what you said also about the exercise piece. For me, I walk when I'm listening to my Voxes. So they kind of go hand in hand. So I feel like, okay, I'm going to head out, I'm going to walk for 45 minutes, and I just hit that button and let them play through. And I feel like I'm connecting with all the people in my group, but I do it on my terms. It's when I want to walk, when I'm outside, that's sort of like my peaceful time. But then I also can feel connected to by hearing everybody. And sometimes I don't even necessarily put a message in, but hearing the people in the groups that I know support me is a help as well. But I think, good point, do it on your own terms, create those boundaries, and set aside time for whatever it is, if it's family, if it's your pet, if it's your, girlfriends, whatever it is, set that time aside to make sure that you're getting that. Because if you don't, you're not going to feel ready to come back to your students and your workplace.
No, that's awesome. And just sharing if other people have found that balance or some strategies that work, I'd love to hear it before we kind of go into the last big question.
Matt, I just wanted to say, whenever I have first year, second year, third, year teachers that are in my world, I feel so incredibly privileged because it is a fresh new perspective on all things. And so I think something that I would say to you in order to find a balance during this time is to not underestimate your voice in this. Like, we literally have just been dealt the same exact hand. And it's a matter of what are we going to do with it? And I would never ever want anyone in my field to ever think that it would take X amount of years, X amount of days, X amount of degrees, whatever, to think that they would then have more impact in my world. So I think when we sit on our, like, there's a time to sit on our thoughts and there's a time to realize that your voice is so incredibly important. So please, like, don't feel like you have to shove all of that inside and keep it right here because you're this first year teacher, you know, or this second year teacher, whatever that should be for you. Like, find that space, find a way to share out because you could be making change for so many more people by sharing.
Awesome. Emily and Mala, have you started to find some of that balance? You're in like the third month or more. You're starting to feel that?
I've been thinking about this as people were talking, and I think that one thing that really helps me go all in is having all of you and having my mentors at school, because like we were saying before, as a new year teacher, like I barely know what I'm doing just to be a teacher. Like this is the first time I've ever done it. So I kind of am just like checking those to-do list things off my list. And for the first couple of weeks, it was just making sure I got all of those things done. And then coming on here and talking about what I've been doing, I've been getting so many creative ideas. And I think creativity is one of the hardest things for me right now because I'm so focused on making sure that I'm getting the things I need to done just as a baseline, that like bringing in and taking time for creativity is there's not much time in the day to research how to do these new things of what I just learned how to do. And so I think that talking to my mentors at school and some of the more experienced teachers and talking to all of you is so wonderful for that aspect for me. And it helps me take risks because I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Or I never thought to take time to look into those different ideas because I just learned how to do this one and then I try it and it's wonderful. And so if I didn't have this, I don't think I would have been doing a lot of the things that I am now. So I think that talking to all of you and having new perspectives really lets me go all in because I get so much creativity kind of like dumped on me that I can pick and choose from, which is so awesome.
Awesome. So one of the things we do try to do is keep it around 45 minutes to make sure we respect everyone's time. I think all of us actually here are on Eastern time. So one of the things that we're going to do, and so we now have, so Natasha had a question and I'm going to have her jump over and ask it and then let us think about it. And then we'll do the book giveaway because I like to end on one thought so everybody has an opportunity to contribute. So, and I also like to pull some people over. So Natasha, come on, I'm going to pull you over and then I'm going to have Jacie and Kristen give some numbers and I'm going to give away the book. So I'm calling Natasha over. So when you come over, Natasha, we want to know who you are. You obviously know Sari because she sent me the message like she's coming over. So either she's your boss or like, what is that? And you were like, no, thank you. And she's like, she's coming over. So one of those things
I wanted to see her.
So what is your role in education?
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is an amazing panel and it was an awesome discussion. I am a third grade virtual teacher. I was an instructional coach for 3 years, so I'm back fresh in the classroom virtually. And I'm loving it, loving every bit of it. And so happy to be here.
Okay. We just pulled you over to say some nice things. That's great. What was your question?
Yeah, thinking.
Oh, wait, before you do that, is Sari your boss or not?
No.
Okay, good. She was kind of bossing you around, like, get on over here. So what is your question, Natasha?
The fire, the light to everyone. So, yeah.
So
all right. I was, thinking about your role now. What do you think it's going to look like when you get back into the physical classroom? Things are not the same. Things are different. We've been forced into the world of technology even more so before, this whole pandemic began. what would you do differently? I guess the question I'm asking is, what would you do differently now that you know what you know as educators and as admin?
Awesome. So I'm going to thank you so much, Natasha, for the question. We are going to each have about a minute to respond. But I also, when we end on that question, I don't want to just throw it right out. I'll let you all think about it for a minute, and then we're going to come back to answer. I'm going to put you back over to the attendees, and you can hear all the great stuff. So what we're going to do now is give away some of those books. So I'm going to move you back over. And what I did is I have the spreadsheet pulled up right now. And if you just call the numbers, I'm going to tell you who they are. Are you ready, you two?
Yeah, what are,
Yeah, let's do
first,
this.
to what?
So we'll say 1 to 41. So first we'll give the 2 modern mentor books away. So call those numbers out.
Go
All
ahead.
right, I'm going to go with 3.
Number 3, that is Elise Hain. Elise Hain. So I will reach out to her. I don't think she's on here tonight, so she will get 1, and then call out another number.
12.
12. As is probably weird on that side because you see me leaning into the spreadsheet. Tracy Bowers number. I like it. All right. So those I'm gonna reach out to them and send those to those 2 educators. So now the 2 all-in books.
23.
Stacy Benton. Stacy Benton. Let me just highlight these folks here. Awesome. All right. And 1 more.
All right, and I'm going with 21.
That is Lori Guyon. I think she's actually on here tonight. So awesome. So I will make all of those connections. Thank you all for contributing, and thank you too for doing that. So those 4 books are all going to go out tomorrow, or at least the information will make connections. So we're going to get back to Natasha's question. So when things go back to normal and whatever we think it's going to look like, what are you going to keep and what are you going to maybe do differently? And 1 minute each. Kristen and Jacie, I'm going to save you to the last. Go.
I'll go first. So as you guys know, I'm already face-to-face, but a lot of my students are coming back in January. Whoa. So what I'm going to keep doing is keep being all in. And for me, that means being committed. I'm committed to this work no matter what. And I think that makes a huge difference for my students because a lot of teachers have quit. And then what was the other question? Oh, what you're like not gonna do, right?
Yeah, something that's not working out so great.
I think it's working out pretty well, but what I do want to do is be more creative and have like more fun activities, more games and things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Kanisha, and so happy you're back.
I'll go next. I'm face-to-face 5 days a week, no virtual students, but I'm teaching something that I've never taught before. So I'm in a whole class. My whole class is smaller because it's smaller class sizes, but I'm usually a reading teacher and I'm used to these small group settings. And this year, working with a larger group of students with a really big disparity of abilities and interest and just everything is so different, I'm realizing that my best classroom management tool is relationship building, which I've always done as a reading teacher, but I'm absolutely feeling it like to the extreme right now, is that the closer my students feel to me and to each other and the more they feel like they can take a risk is the better our class runs. And I will never forget this year in all of my years of teaching, and that we spend so much time in my class just hanging out and talking and getting to know each other and playing games and dancing and having fun. And that's something I will always carry no matter what I teach, what group of students, what type of students I work with. I want to continue to have fun because that's what makes our days go by really smoothly. So yes, a lot of dancing in this group. I don't know who started. I think it may have been Melissa started the dancing trend, but dancing has taken us through some really hard times this year. So we will keep dancing.
I can go. I think for me, I am virtual 100% since the beginning, kind of like Kristen, completely new. new bunch of kids. I service 7 different elementary schools, so it's not just one. So they have no idea who I am. But I think the biggest change that will happen when we go back face to face is, number one, not taking a single second for granted. That means my colleagues, that means my kids, the side conversations, their faces, the hugs, and also giving grace, making sure I extend that grace even after this is all over. So that was fun.
Awesome.
Well, I'll build off of Ariel and Melissa. So I'm hybrid. We're in person 4 days a week and remote 1 day. And I have my students for 3 years. And the one thing I think is very similar to Ariel's is I always thought that I was really good at building relationships, and I knew they were important, but but this has shown me the real power of relationships, and it really does have the power to allow students to not regress, to not, fall backwards when things get hard. And I haven't seen drops in my students' progress through all of these experiences. And I really do think it's because of the relationships that we have and the time we take to build moments and have time together in our classroom, really knowing each other, and really they know that they're supported. And I think that is something that I will own and continue to value above all. As we move forward past this, just that it really is, it's a game changer, really.
I'm going to piggyback on what everybody is saying and just reinforce that relationship piece. And for me, I think that I have grown as a communicator. I think that I valued communication, but I don't know how intentional I was with certain pieces. And I have, without a doubt, learned, I can say I don't know. And it's okay. At this point, it's so important just to even share that I don't know, because one of the pieces that I have without a doubt learned is that if I don't share the story, all of us, even me, you have a way of telling the story that may or may not be the reality of the situation, and having those conversations. I've set up virtual office hours because we're not walking through the hallways. I can't just pop in and see somebody. It's such a different world in this virtual setting. So, just that communication piece, I think, is really at the heart of those relationships.
So I feel like this is a little bit difficult to answer because we don't really have much of a base of what we were doing before versus what we're doing now.
Good point.
But like I said earlier, like my school is really great about creativity and fun activities and not so hard on us about curriculum standards this year. So I am going to continue dancing. We sing a lot, we play a lot of games, and when things are a bit more strict next year, I want to find ways to still incorporate those things into my class. I think one thing that I will do a bit differently, I know I shared a couple weeks ago that I had to have a mindset shift of planning like day to day or a couple days in advance because everything was changing so easily. And once we are back on a strict schedule that's not going to change, I am going to enjoy planning 2 weeks ahead and sleeping restfully knowing that I have my plans ready in advance.
Similarly, we don't have much of a base to go off of, but I think that this whole relationship building concept is very important. And it's clear to me because I am teaching reading and writing for 2 separate groups. And one of my groups I have about 45 extra minutes with because we have morning meeting and our morning transition and just like logging on and off transition time. And that's all side chit chat time. And I've noticed that my behavior management for that class is totally different than for the one where we have an hour and 15 minutes and they come on in straight for math and we just have to crank through the lesson. There's really no time to chit chat, and it's so different. And even that smaller class, I was with them in person and I still had that same amount of time. But the kiddos who I am remote with, that I have that extra time for morning meeting exercises and chit chatting, like we have so much more trust and rapport built. And I think that it's very clear between those 2 groups how relationships make a huge, huge difference. And I'll definitely make sure that I spend a good amount of time, even in person, doing that when I can.
Awesome. That is great. And before we move on to our 2 special guests, first of all, did I forget somebody? I was so locked into listening to everybody. Okay. talking about dancing and all these other things. Lori Higgins, who was the winner of the Echo Dot, sent me a message how thankful she was. She's using it in her class for music. It's awesome. And we were able to do that and able to give away some books thanks to Gaggle, who is the sponsor of our web series. They've jumped in and done some great things. So thank you for that. If you haven't seen Gaggle, it's a great resource. We're not going to get too deep into it today, but I just wanted to make sure to thank them as well. I know for me, one of the things that I want to make sure to continue to do is memorialize content. What I mean by that is we give a lot of professional development. We do a lot for our staff, but it's often one-offs and we don't save it. So learning how to use YouTube as a resource, learning how to create podcasts or watching some of the great things that Carrie's been doing and with her sketchnoting on YouTube and Melissa on Flipgrid, like memorializing the content. I'm going to definitely continue to do that and even try to push the envelope a little bit. That being said, when it's a staff meeting, one of the things I'm going to give up is not have a virtual staff meeting, because all of you are talking about relationships and all of that. Well, if we're having a staff meeting, I want to be there for it and then memorialize the content in other ways. So that's definitely something that I'm going to give up, because it just misses that face-to-face piece with staff and seeing the authenticity and seeing and gathering the feedback. So those would be my two. So to wrap it up, I want to thank you, Jacie and Kristen. I'd love to hear yours before we end this tonight.
Jacie, you want to take it?
Well, I was actually thinking similar to what you said, Matt. I mean, as much as I appreciate seeing all of you on here, some new faces and some familiar faces, I don't think I want to keep on Zooming after that. When we're back, I want to be face to face, and Kristen's going to laugh her head off. Like, I want to hug my kids. I want to see all my people. And I think that's been so hard. Having to social distance has been a real challenge. And she's laughing because I'm not known to be a big hugger. But you miss that human connection. And I think that just goes with everyone saying about relationships. I mean, yeah, I don't want to see a ton of technology. I want to see faces and be around people and have conversations. And I think maybe we'll all be ready to give technology a little bit of a break when things get back to normal.
All right, Kristen, bring us home.
All right. So I think one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my career is happening right now, because in my situation, my students do not need me. This is not about me at all. They can actually get on to a program every single day and they can succeed by themselves, truly, in isolation, away from me as an educator. I am a facilitator of all things this year. And so for me, being able to stretch every single relationship to the nth degree, to be able to bring those little people into my space and let them know that they are seen, knowing and recognizing that every single one of them, no matter what situation they are in, they each have a story. I've been so big on that. I'm so big on SEL, but this to me has been by far one of my most humbling experiences, because each and every time that they click to reach out and talk to me, every time I hear my name, I am so elated. You know, you hear your name all day long when you're in that classroom, and you want to be able to get them to be more independent, where there's 3 before me. And I just cannot wait for them to be in that space with me and just say my name, and where I can just reach right back out and have that given conversation any minute of any day. That is going to be one of the most beautiful things ever. I will say this though, as much as I would love to take a break from technology, I am so grateful that it has found its place within our space of learning. I am so grateful that it's no longer layered, that it is intentional, that there is relevance and meaning behind every single thing we do. We would not be learning without it right now. I love that I can say to my cyber students, oh, that didn't go so well. Well, you know what? What could you do? What could you create? I mean, I have students that are sketchnoting because it's an option, because it's something that they are choosing. And then they deliver it to me through tech so that they can replace something that's within the cyber program with that choice that they've made. Before, that would have only happened because I would have pushed that out. These are things that our students are doing on their own, and I never want to lose sight of that. So with that being said, hugs all around to everybody because it's going down.
Awesome. Well, Jacie and Kristen, thank you so much for joining us, and the rest of our team. Thank you for really going all in the summer, agreeing to be part of this and jumping on whenever you can. And Molly and Emily sharing your journey with us, and Kanisha as well. And so thank all of you. Thank you for those who tuned in, and thank you those who watch after the fact and listen to the podcast. So thank all of you. Hope everyone has a great start to your week, and we'll see you next Sunday.